Love isn't blind. It's clinically delusional, and science can prove it. Fact 1. The dopamine trap. Falling in love hits your brain like a controlled substance. Literally. MRI scans show that romantic attraction activates the same reward circuits as cocaine, the ventral tegmental area and the caudate nucleus. That means your first "I love you" moment isn't emotional, it's a chemical hit. You're not bonding, you're getting high. That's why early relationships feel addictive, obsessive, and impossible to let go of, even when they're toxic. Your brain doesn't care if the person is good for you. It only cares if they make your dopamine spike. Love isn't a feeling, it's a scientifically engineered relapse. Fact 2. The mirror illusion. When you fall for someone, your brain doesn't fall for them. It falls for itself. Psychologists call it the similarity attraction effect. We're hardwired to be drawn to people who reflect our traits, values, or even facial features. That's why you sometimes end up dating your emotional twin, or worse, your mirror image with better lighting. You think it's soul recognition, but it's just narcissism disguised as destiny. Love feels like connection because it's our ego seeing itself and applauding. Fact 3. The withdrawal. Phenomenon breakups don't just hurt emotionally, they mimic opioid withdrawal. Studies from the University of Michigan found that losing someone you love activates the same pain centers as physical injury and drug detox. That's why you check their social media like a junkie looking for a fix. It's not weakness, it's withdrawal. The cruel twist? Your brain releases stress hormones like cortisol while still craving dopamine from the same person causing your pain. Love is the only addiction where the dealer and the cure are the same person. Fact 4. The scarcity illusion. Love doesn't make people more attractive. Scarcity does. When someone pulls away, your brain doesn't see rejection. It sees value. Psychologists call this the scarcity principle, and it's why people suddenly look 10 times hotter the moment they lose interest. Your mind is a capitalist. It assumes rarity equals worth. So when they stop texting, your dopamine-starved brain launches a marketing campaign titled, "Maybe they're the one." The truth? They didn't get better. You just got anxious. Studies show that intermittent affection, the on-off attention pattern, triggers the same neurochemical loop as gambling addiction. You start chasing jackpots of validation, mistaking emotional roulette for romance. That's why we crave people who confuse us and get bored with those who don't. Stability feels like silence after chaos, and silence makes addicts itch. Fact 5. The halo effect attraction turns your brain into a cult member with bad judgment. The halo effect is a cognitive bias that makes us assume that because someone's attractive, they must also be kind, intelligent, and emotionally stable. You know, everything they're absolutely not. Research from Princeton found people form first impressions of attractiveness and trustworthiness in under a tenth of a second. That's faster than your rational brain can even clock in for work. So when you say, "I just knew they were special," what you really mean is, "My lizard brain saw cheekbones and lost its mind." You're not falling in love. You're hiring a hot person to play God in your emotional movie. And the plot twist? They're just as flawed as everyone else, only better lit. Fact 6. The trauma bond. You know that relationship that feels like war and worship at the same time? That's not passion. That's trauma bonding. It happens when love gets mixed with fear, control, or intermittent reward. Each cycle of chaos and calm wires your brain to equate emotional instability with connection. Every fight followed by affection drops a surge of oxytocin, the same hormone that bonds mothers to infants. Translation: your brain is literally parenting your abuser. Studies on abusive dynamics show trauma bonds create neurological loyalty, even when you know it's destroying you. You don't stay because you're weak, you stay because your brain confuses survival with safety. It's not, "I can't live without them." It's, "My nervous system doesn't know how to exist without the adrenaline." Love shouldn't feel like withdrawal. If it does, you're not in love, you're in captivity. Fact 7. The soulmate delusion. Here's a cruel joke from psychology. The soulmate myth was probably invented by lonely dopamine addicts. The human brain is wired for pattern recognition, which means it can turn coincidence into destiny faster than you can say, "We both like dogs." You meet someone, discover you share a birthday month and a trauma or two, and your brain declares, "This is fate." Nope. That's just confirmation bias in a tuxedo. Neurologically speaking, love at first sight is less about magic and more about biochemical recognition, your subconscious scanning for familiar emotional patterns, often from childhood. That's why people who feel meant to be often mirror the dynamics you grew up with, comfort, chaos, and all. So when you say, "It feels like I've known them forever," you might be right. You've known the feeling, just not the person. Fact 8. The repetition. Compulsion. Ever notice how your type looks suspiciously like your last emotional disaster? That's not bad luck. It's psychological repetition compulsion, Freud's cruel inside joke. Your subconscious doesn't want happiness. It wants familiarity. If your early relationships taught you that love equals unpredictability, your brain will chase anyone who gives you that same nervous flutter, which, spoiler, is anxiety in a party. Dress. The mind repeats unresolved pain like a broken record, hoping to fix it this time. You think you're finding closure. You're just buying the same trauma in a different font. That's why you end up dating people who make you feel seen, because they mirror your old wounds perfectly. It's not fate. It's unfinished business disguised as chemistry. You don't need another soulmate. You need a software update. Fact 9. The oxytocin trap. Love's favorite drug is a liar. Oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone, gets released during hugs, sex, or even text messages. It builds trust, softens judgment, and temporarily shuts off your brain's threat detection system. That's biology's way of saying, ignore the red flags, the species must continue. But here's the punchline. Oxytocin doesn't just bond you to good people, it bonds you to whoever's there. That's why toxic love feels magnetic. Your brain chemically mistakes shared adrenaline for intimacy. The more dramatic the relationship, the deeper the bond. Because fear and love are processed in the same neural neighborhood. You don't love the person. You love the hormonal roller coaster that makes you feel alive. Fact 10. The reciprocity mirage. Humans are wired for reciprocity. We give affection expecting it back. But in love, that instinct can make us blind to reality. When someone gives you crumbs of attention, your brain overvalues it. It's called the norm of reciprocity bias. You start chasing those crumbs, desperate to even the emotional scales. The more inconsistent they are, the more addicted you become. It's why people stay loyal to those who barely text back. The rare reward hits harder than constant kindness. This is the same psychology that makes casino lights irresistible. Unpredictable reward schedules trigger maximum dopamine. So when you say, "They make me feel crazy," you're technically right. You're caught in a neurochemical slot machine that doesn't pay out in love, just confusion. Fact 11. The projection fantasy. When you fall for someone, you're not seeing them. You're seeing your own imagination wearing their face. Psychologists call it projection, filling in emotional blanks with whatever your heart wants to believe. They don't actually make you feel safe. You just decided they do. They never promised forever. Your brain just wrote it in the fine print. This mental Photoshop happens fast. Your mind edits out the uncomfortable truths to preserve the fantasy. That's why people can stay in relationships that clearly don't work. They're not dating reality. They're dating their own hope. It's the ultimate emotional catfish, and you're both the victim and the scammer. Fact 12. The investment fallacy. The longer you stay, the harder it is to leave, not because it's love, but because of the sunk cost fallacy. You've spent years, emotions, maybe money, and now your brain screams, "Don't waste it!" So you keep investing, trying to justify the loss. Psychologically, it's the same mechanism that keeps gamblers at the table after losing everything. One more hand and I'll win it back. Relationships become casinos of emotion. You keep betting on potential, not evidence. And the house always wins. The truth? Time spent with the wrong person isn't wasted, it's tuition. The cost of learning what you won't tolerate again. Love doesn't fail when it ends. It fails when you stay because you're afraid to admit it's over. Fact 13. The nostalgia virus. Missing them doesn't mean they were right for you. It means your brain is glitching. When you think about a past lover, your mind doesn't replay reality. It edits it. You're not remembering the fights, the gaslighting, or the existential dread. You're remembering the dopamine highs and the moments that made you feel alive. Psychologists call this rosy retrospection, your brain's desperate PR campaign to make the past look better than it was. Here's the twisted part. Missing them often means your brain is addicted to its own memories. You're not in love with them anymore. You're in love with the emotional movie you produced in your head. That's why people go back to their exes knowing it'll hurt again. They're chasing nostalgia, not love, and nostalgia is just pain wearing perfume. Fact 14. The ego contract. Most relationships aren't love stories, they're unspoken business deals between egos. You give validation, they give attention. You offer safety, they offer excitement. It feels like love. Until one party changes the terms. This is called narcissistic reciprocity, and it's more common than people admit. You're not connecting as souls, you're negotiating emotional currency. The reason breakups hurt so much isn't just heartbreak, it's identity collapse. The you that existed in that dynamic stops existing, and your ego panics. Love becomes a battlefield, not because you're fighting each other, but because you're fighting for who you are in the reflection of the other person. You don't miss them. You miss the version of yourself you got to be when they looked at you like you mattered. Fact 15. The possession paradox. Humans are funny creatures. We crave love, but the moment we feel secure, we get bored. It's called the possessiveness paradox. Once your brain has someone, dopamine drops. Certainty kills excitement. That's why people sabotage good relationships, subconsciously trying to revive the thrill of pursuit. You're not self-destructive, you're chemically restless. Evolution wired us to chase novelty, not peace. The hunt keeps your survival circuits buzzing. So, when your partner stops being a mystery, your mind starts picking fights just to feel something. Love fades not because it dies, but because your brain gets used to the same drug. It needs a new dosage, a new face, or a new problem. It's biology's way of saying, congratulations, you're bored. Time to ruin everything. Fact 16. The empathy manipulation. Love makes you empathetic, which also makes you the perfect target. Emotional manipulators exploit what psychologists call compassion fatigue. They drip-feed drama, guilt, or sadness until your empathy becomes exhaustion. You start helping out of duty instead of care, fixing problems that never end and slowly confusing pity with love. Your brain, desperate for harmony, releases oxytocin every time you help, reinforcing the cycle. They cry, you soothe, you bond, they reset. And now you're trapped in a feedback loop that rewards your self-destruction. The darkest part? Manipulators don't have to lie. They just have to make you feel needed. You mistake emotional labor for intimacy, not realizing you're parenting someone who refuses to grow up. That's not love. That's codependency with better lighting. Fact 17. The comparison curse. Love and comparison are mortal enemies. But your brain doesn't care. Social media turned affection into a scoreboard. You don't just want to be loved, you want to be loved better than others. Psychologists call this upward comparison, and it's why perfect Instagram couples can make you doubt your own relationship. Your brain's reward system reacts to perceived status, not happiness. Seeing others win in love drops your serotonin like a stock market crash. Suddenly, your decent, stable partner feels boring, and you start craving grand gestures, drama, or proof. Modern love isn't just about connection anymore. It's a performance art. We don't fall in love quietly. We brand it, market it, and wait for likes. But no amount of hearts on a post can fill the emptiness of feeling unseen in real life. It's not your relationship that's broken. It's your dopamine metrics. Fact 18. The empath's curse. If you're the healer in every relationship, congratulations, you're being drained to death by design. Psychologists call it pathological altruism, when your empathy becomes self-sabotage. You fall for broken people because fixing them gives you purpose. It's not love, it's ego disguised as virtue. You're addicted to being needed because deep down, you're terrified of being unnecessary. The sick twist? The more you give, the less they respect you. People don't value the emotional labor they don't earn. You become the emotional equivalent of free Wi-Fi. Always available, never appreciated. Love isn't supposed to be charity. If your relationship feels like a rescue mission, you're not their partner. You're their unpaid therapist with attachment issues. Fact 19. The emotional echo. You think you just click with certain people, right? That instant chemistry, that uncanny sense of being understood? That's not soul connection, it's emotional mirroring. Skilled manipulators subconsciously copy your tone, language, and values to create psychological synchrony. Your brain interprets that similarity as trustworthiness, thanks to the similarity attraction bias. You're not meeting your other half, you're meeting your reflection, programmed to agree with you. That's why the first few weeks feel magical, until their true self emerges and you realize you've been in love with a clone built from your own personality. They weren't your mirror because you were meant to be. They were your mirror because they knew it would make you put your guard down. Fact 20. The intermittent reward trap. You know that person who's hot one day and cold the next? That's not emotional confusion. That's a behavioral science experiment you didn't sign up for. It's called intermittent reinforcement, the most addictive reward system known to psychology. Casinos use it. Narcissists master it. When someone gives you affection unpredictably, love, then distance, then love again, your brain enters survival mode. You start chasing the high of winning them back. Studies show that intermittent affection releases more dopamine than consistent kindness. That's why calm love feels boring after chaos. You've been trained to confuse peace with emotional starvation. It's not love you're addicted to, it's uncertainty. Fact 21. The idealization hangover. Falling in love feels euphoric until it doesn't. During the honeymoon phase, your brain floods with dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin, a cocktail so potent it literally suppresses your amygdala, the part of your brain that detects danger. Translation: you literally can't see red flags during the first few months. When the chemicals fade, you crash hard. Suddenly, the same traits that once made them magnetic become unbearable. Their confidence turns to arrogance. Their passion feels like volatility. That's not them changing. That's your neurochemistry sobering up. You didn't fall out of love, you just ran out of dopamine. Fact 22. The identity erosion. Ever looked in the mirror during a relationship and thought, who even am I anymore? That's self-concept fusion, the psychological merging of identity that happens in intense attachment. You stop using I and start saying we. Your boundaries blur, your interests shift, and your emotional state becomes dependent on theirs. In moderation, it's bonding. In excess, it's psychological decay. When love turns into fusion, you lose individuality. And here's the cruel paradox. The more you disappear into someone, the less they value you. People crave what's separate, not what's absorbed. The death of mystery is the death of attraction. You didn't lose them, you lost yourself, and they followed. Fact 23. The subconscious scoreboard. Every relationship secretly runs on math, even if you don't realize it. Psychologists call it the social exchange theory. Your brain constantly tracks perceived costs and rewards. It's not romantic, but it's real. You subconsciously ask, am I getting as much as I'm giving? When the balance tips, resentment starts. You stop giving freely. They start withholding to test control. Love becomes a negotiation, one that no one admits is happening. This is why couples fight over petty things like dishes or text replies. It's not about the chore, it's about fairness. Every unreturned effort becomes emotional debt, and eventually, someone files for bankruptcy. Love doesn't die from lack of feeling, it dies from unbalanced accounting. Fact 24. The jealousy algorithm. Jealousy isn't proof of love, it's your status system having a panic attack. Biologically, jealousy is a mate guarding script, an ancient alarm that screams, resource loss imminent. Your brain doesn't picture sunsets and vows, it runs a threat model: attention, access, reputation, replacement. That's why a heart reacts to a like on your partner's photo as if it's a home invasion. Modern twist: social media multiplies perceived rivals on an infinite scroll, so your brain never gets a safe signal. Each ambiguous interaction becomes data your amygdala mislabels as danger. You call it my gut feeling. It's really a buggy detection system that can't tell the difference between a coworker and a coup. Here's the kicker: jealousy spikes desire, fear of loss boosts reward value, which is why couples fight, then have intense make-up intimacy. You mistake adrenaline for proof of passion, but that's not closeness. That's threat arousal wearing lingerie. Jealousy doesn't mean I care. It means my internal scoreboard thinks I'm losing. different sentence, same cortisol. Fact 25. The attachment carousel. Romance often feels like destiny. It's usually just attachment styles playing tag. Anxious attachers hunt for reassurance like oxygen. Avoidant attachers hunt for distance like freedom. Put them together and you get the most profitable soap opera on earth. Pursue, withdraw, reconcile, repeat. Anxious partners use protest behaviors, overtexting, tests, ultimatums, to pull closeness. Avoidant partners use deactivation strategies, downplaying feelings, nitpicking flaws, I'm just busy, to push space. The cycle itself becomes the drug. Anxiety spikes, relief hits, bond deepens, not because it's healthy, but because the nervous system learned to equate chaos with connection. Both believe the other is the problem. Both are reenacting their earliest lessons about love. The anxious one learned love can vanish. The avoidant one learned closeness costs freedom. Together they confirm each other's worst fears. See, when I get close, I suffocate. See, when I ask for closeness, I'm abandoned. You're not cursed, you're calibrated, and your calibration chooses for you until you rewrite it. Fact 26. The free will illusion, grand finale. You don't choose who you love. Your predictions do. The brain is a prediction machine. It minimizes surprise by clinging to familiar emotional patterns. That instant spark? It's your nervous system recognizing a template it already knows how to survive. Safety, danger, ecstasy, dread? Your body picks the story first and hands your mind the script after. Attraction is mostly model matching. Signals, scent, micro-expressions, status cues, rhythm of speech. Your brain runs a trillion silent checks and whispers. This one will keep our world coherent. If coherence used to include chaos, guess what feels like home? Chaos, but with prettier eyes. Free will shows up later in maintenance, not selection. You rationalize, optimize, and justify what biology already decided. Then you call it meaning. Romantic, yes. Also hilariously bleak. Because the person you swear is meant for you may just be a perfect fit for your oldest algorithm. The plot twist? You can't outlove that code. You can only update it, or watch it pick your partners for you again and again with surgical accuracy and zero mercy. Still think love is a choice? Name your algorithm in the comments.